Today, we will be taking a glance back at America in the 1980s to investigate one of the most blatant examples of racially biased legislation in recent policy history and whose disparate impacts persist today, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986. The Anti-Drug Abuse Act originated out of the Reagan administration's War on Drugs campaign, which aimed to reduce illegal drug trade with policies that encouraged heavy policing and established harsh mandatory sentences for drug-related offenses.
The anti-drug abuse's discriminatory nature lies in the distinction between crack and powder cocaine. Crack and powder cocaine have nearly identical chemical compositions, but they also have few differences. First of all, crack is smoked while powder cocaine is snorted or injected. Secondly, the more important, crack is much cheaper than in powder form. While 1/10 of crack is only $10 to $25, 1/8 of the powder cocaine costs $120 to $150. As a result, crack is more widely used in impoverished majority Black communities, where cocaine is more commonly used in affluent white communities.
Despite the two versions of the drug being virtually identical, the new law created a 100-to-1 disparity where individuals caught with crack cocaine faced much harsher sentences than those caught with powder cocaine. It also established a 5-year minimum sentence for possession of crack cocaine, but not powder cocaine. This, in turn, created a racial disparity in which African Americans are disproportionately being sentenced for crack cocaine offenses.
Let's look at how an example to illustrate how this law operates in practice. This is Wade. Wade is a Black man. Wade gets arrested for possession of just 5 grams of crack cocaine, and this warrants a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison for Wade. On the other end, we have Kevin. Kevin is white. Kevin gets pulled over and found in possession of 500 grams of powder cocaine. Despite the fact that Wade possesses 1/100th of the quantity that Kevin has, the two men received the same exact sentence. Similarly, if Wade was carrying 10 grams of crack cocaine, he would face 10 years of mandatory sentence, while Kevin would have been in possession of 1,000th gram of powder cocaine for the same sentence to be imposed.
The justification for this sentencing disparity was derived from faulty scientific reasoning that claimed crack was more harmful than powder cocaine, as well as the argument that crack is more commonly associated with violent crime.
Regardless, the outcomes of the legislation was undeniably racist. Black men accounted for 80% of crack-related arrests and sentences, while Latinx men and white men accounted for 60% of powder usage. Combined with a 115-month average imprisonment for crack offenses, compared with an average of 87 months for powder offenses, the sentencing disparity results in more African Americans spending more time in the prison system.
In an attempt to rectify the effects of this unjust policy, the Obama administration passed the Fair Sentencing Act in 2010, which reduced the sentencing disparity to an 18-to-1 crack-to-powder drug quantity ratio. It also eliminated the 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for possession of crack cocaine.
However, we argue that this revision does not go far enough. A slight bias remains in the 18-to-1 ratio, and the act does not apply to those prosecuted under state law, which accounts for a very large portion of the drug-related offenses. As experts now agree, previous concerns and arguments surrounding the differentiation between crack and powder cocaine have been deemed erroneous, and therefore disparity in the sentencing is completely unjustified and must be replaced with a 1-to-1 ratio to eliminate all meaningless biases. Furthermore, we advocate for the retroactive application of the entire bill so that all of those sentenced under 100-to-1 ratio are granted a retrial under equitable standards.
Despite the progress made by the FSA, the law's shortcomings continue to have detrimental effects on the lives of Black individuals and communities. In Andrea Elliott's Invisible Child, we saw how over-policing in Black communities dismantles families, such as when the kids went into foster care after Supreme's arrest. This further perpetuates a cycle of oppression because incarceration severs intimate attachments, increasing the risk of future incarceration for children.
In order to remedy this history of systemic racism and poverty, we would recommend steps including creating community building to bring members together in a safe space, fostering educational opportunities for the youth in the community, and similar to the efforts taken by Elder Cummings in Project Fatherhood that bring together adults weekly to help them navigate raising children in an uncertain environment.